So I'm inside of Maya. I go to File, and if I go straight down in Maya under File, there's a section called Project where it has Project Window and Set Project. So what you want to do is check on Project Window. So File, Project Window, and that pulls this little menu up here. Okay. This is how you create a project. When you create a project, you only have to do it once, and then if you go from computer to computer or do stuff, you just set Maya to that project so it knows where everything is. Okay? So, at the top, I'm going to click New, and I'll turn in, I'll call it, under Current Project, Thai Logo. You want to be careful not to use, I mean, don't call yours Thai Logo, but yeah. I had a class who did that, and I was like, I'm going back and forth, and they're all named Thai, like Thai Room, and I'm like, no, you're the literal class, okay. So I have Thai Logo for the project, and for the location, it'll want to put it under Documents, Maya Projects, and that's fine for right now. So that's okay. All these little folders are the subfolders where Maya's going to look for stuff. So now that I've got that, all I've got to do is hit Accept, and it's created that project folder in the My Documents folder of the computer. If you take that project folder home, if you want to work on it, like you come in one day and you want to work on another computer, you have to have that project with you. And so this is why, like, if you come in when there's a class going on and you go to another computer, that's where that USB drive, because these guys aren't on a server that we have access to, so you have to have it on that folder. So now, if I go to another computer, or if I take it home and run Maya on a different machine, I just go to File, Set Project. And then I would go and navigate to wherever that project is that I created, Thai Logo, and I'd go inside of that folder with nothing selected and just hit Set. And that's what I would do if I go to a different computer, or I always want to make sure I'm in my project, because otherwise you're going to save in other people's projects or the wrong place and stuff like that. Yes. Your folder, yeah, your project folder. And then hit Set. Yeah. So everything will be like, oh, it'll look for stuff where it's supposed to be. So now, that's set. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Illustrator. And what I need to do is choose a logo that I want to bring into there. And that's where, remember, you decide, like, how is stuff made. So if I, like in the case of the shark that we kind of illustrated real quick, where it has two parts. It has the top and it has the bottom, so it can have separate textures. They're two different shapes, right? Then I would bring that in as a whole. Let me move that out of the way, because it's tight. Let me just make some text so we can also do that. So I've got a shape, and I'm also going to do some text. Why not? And what you want to do is make sure, before you send it over, you want to make sure that the text is converted to outlines. So that means I select my text, I tweak it however I need it to be. Let's make it bold so it's a little thicker. We're kind of mishmashing logos together, so bear with me. So, now, I can take all these in at the same time. If they're like separated like this, I can, if I want more control, bring them in one at a time. So it's kind of up to you. But I'm just going to bring let's say I'm going to bring the shark in, and then I'll bring the text in separately, just so you can see the process. So I select the shark. I'm going to right-click. Actually, I'll just select it and go to Edit Copy. So that's the design part. I go to Maya. And then inside of Maya, the way I'm going to bring it in is I'm going to go to the Motion Graphics tab. And then you'll see there's an option for SVG. So in the Motion Graphics shelf, and then SVG, and click SVG once. And you should get this guy right here, which is like your placeholder. And the way that I do this is now I just hit paste, because it's already in the clipboard, right over here. And there's my shark. There's Sharky. Sharky. I'll show you. Huh? It shows an exclamation point? Oh, this guy here? Yeah, it just means that well, let me go over just a couple of things, and then we'll kind of hit that one. But did it come in okay, or is it showing up as wrong? So here's a few things. First, navigation. Let's get that out of the way, and then we'll fine-tune the stuff. So all of your navigation is either, if you're on a PC keyboard, it's Alt. If you're on a Mac keyboard, it's Option. But in either case, it's Alt or Option, left mouse button, and move the mouse, rotates around. Alt or Option, middle mouse button, pans, and right mouse button with Alt or Option, zooms in and out. So to navigate around, this is a floating camera. All you have to do is remember, one button holds down, in this case, Option, and then left mouse to rotate around it, middle mouse to pan, right mouse to zoom in and out. And that's moving Option, right mouse button, holding both those buttons, moving my mouse left to right to zoom in, middle mouse to pan around, left mouse to rotate. Okay? And that's how you start to just move around in 3D space. When you're holding down that Option key, it's basically saying, or Alt if you're on a PC, is you're saying, I'm going to be using shortcuts of the mouse. Right? So it's just those three. Questions on that? Doing okay? Now, when I want to move something, I left mouse click to select it, just clicking on it, and I press W. And W will allow you to move things around. When they're selected, they're highlighted green. So the shortcuts for that is W is the move tool, which is also, you'll see it on the left, the box with the 4 arrows coming out. E is the rotate tool, and R is the scale. W-E-R. Move, rotate, scale. Oh, right-click on the object and go to right-click and hold and select Object Mode. And now click on it and try it. See? To undo, you just press Z. You don't even need to like hit Control Z or anything. It's just Z because you'll be doing that a lot. Okay. So the shortcuts, W-E-R, move, rotate, scale. So what you'll find is when you're working, your hand will be over those keys very often, most of the time, because that's the main tools you'll always use. Okay, so got the shark in my position. Now I'm going to go to Illustrator. I'm going to select my text. Oops. I'm going to right-click on the text in Illustrator and say Create Outlines, because it won't come over properly. I can make text in Maya. I just won't have the access to all of the fonts. But so I'm just going to make it in here. And I made it as a graphic. Okay. So now I'm going to select the text, edit, copy. Then I go back into Maya and I do the same thing in this case, where I'm just going to click SVG and paste. You right click and say Create Outlines. And to shrink it down, once it's brought in and I pasted it, there's an option called SVG size, right where we pasted it, and I just shrink it down so that it's the size that I want it to be. See? You create another SVG and then paste it in just like you did the shark. I'll be right there. Let me pause, resume. So the problem is, like, you see how it has an outline here? And we see it because, oh, I want to see that. But in 3D, you wouldn't have that outline. It would just be the shape. This is for the illustration. So if I tell it this outline is gone, right? And I tell it this outline is gone. Right now, you're like, but it's missing. It's like, no, it's not missing. It's just white on white. That's why I don't see it. So if I actually copy that, and I go back to Maya, and I say, I'm sorry, shark, who's giving me this little red warning, like, dude, what are you doing to me? And I just repaste that in. You see it gets rid of that, and it cleans it. And I don't have the outline because I don't really need it. So I've gotten rid of that little hazard symbol going, you know, you're speaking in strange languages to me. I don't know what you're trying to say. And once I have that in there, now I can go in and I could do a little bit of tweaking, like if I go here to geometry and say, oh, curve resolution. Sharky looks a little blocky, so I'm going to increase the curve resolution to, like, let's try 6. Or maybe 10. And it adds more divisions, but it softens it out so it doesn't have, it's not as choppy. When I click on it and you see it has these two paths here, those are the different parts, the blue part and the white part. Because I can tweak those out independently in here. When I go to here, you notice, oh wow, there's a whole bunch of paths. With the paste option, I can always, like, if I decided I wanted to change that, I could go into Illustrator, change it, copy it, paste it back in, and it'll just replace this. So you can do updates. For right now, it's using a default blend, and it's using what's called vertex painting. That's how it's getting the color. It's not really colored, it's coloring the anchors of it, and that's filling in. If I need to actually go beyond that and change the color, then I have to assign a different material to it. Right now, if we just get it in, I can help you guys out with that, but I just want you to get this locked down first. In the case of the heart, and for some of the other objects that people were talking about, you can always go in and under the different attributes, we can enable a bevel. See that? If we wanted to. And we can actually go in and adjust how big that bevel is, how tight, if we wanted to. You see how it's rounding that edge? So he's not as like razor sharp. So without the bevel, with the bevel. See? And that makes it a lot smoother, see? You just have to be careful of little weird artifacts like this that you may have to tweak out, depending on how it's put together. And that, I think, is just, I'd have to go back and clean it a little bit. Now, after that, so let's go through some of these. We see we have SVG, where we have the paths, and we can adjust the individual paths, so I can actually change their offset. I could change their scale and thickness. Geometry is where I can smooth it out and add a bevel and do stuff like that. Texturing, right now it's using this blend. Now if I go in there, I can assign separate shaders to the caps, bevels, and extrusions. And what that does is that's going to allow me, if I wanted to like really start to change the color and the material inside of here, how shiny it is and stuff like that. Because right now it's just using a default blend for this, which is a material. So you can create a single material for the whole thing, that whole piece, or you can create a separate material for like, oh, I want the edges to be a different color from the fill, that kind of stuff. Now, when it comes to, I just want you guys to get this in, and then we'll kind of tweak it out afterwards. But if I get this in, like if this is my logo, right? Right now, if I render this out, if you hold down the space bar, it pulls up this big menu of all these submenus, you see? So just holding down the space bar pulls this up, and if I go and click above all these menus and hold, it pulls up yet another set of menus. Oh my goodness, so much. And then I choose the top right corner, hyper shade, render perspective. And that reconfigures Maya so I can see the materials. And so I can, you know, start to do a render. And what we're going to do, if we look over here, let me, what was that? No, not you. It was, that's it, magnifier. There you are. So let me zoom this in so you can see it a little bit. So, do you guys, I switched it to this view by holding down spacebar, going up to the top of this menu, left mouse clicking, and choosing Hypershade Render Perspective. And that gives me this layout. And what this guy over here is a renderer, and you can see there's different renderers. So I could choose the software render, which gives me this. The hardware renderer, which is what we're using, which will give me that. And just tapping the space bar on when I have the cursor over any window will blow it up to full size. So we can see what that looks like rendered out. Okay. So for this assignment, just to turn in, like, you know, for the render view, that's all you really have to do, and then we'll worry about the tweaking out and getting it ready for animation. But just getting it, so if I choose Hardware 2.0, you'll see, like, ooh, cool, there's my render. And if I rotate around it, render. The only thing that you might need, because this is like there's no lighting in here, would be to actually create a light. And I could just go up to the top, create, lights, and then I have a bunch of lights we'll talk about. But for right now, I'm just going to say create a directional light, which is like a light that is like the sun. Remember, W is move, E is rotate, R is scale, so I just scale it, rotate it. Now you'll notice when I rotate it, I can actually see the shape and the lighting there. So we'll fine tune it afterwards. I just want to make sure you guys are okay with putting stuff into Maya, and then we'll tweak it out. And if you guys are hanging out, I could show you more stuff. The shortcuts I want you to remember, or you can jot them down. The ones we went over is W, E, R, which is move, rotate, scale. And you can see move shows the arrows, rotate shows the circles, scale shows the boxes. Alt or Option, left mouse button, rotate around a scene. Middle mouse is pan, and right mouse button zooms in and out. And then if you accidentally hit something, a lot of times people will hit a button and they're like, oh my god, I broke it. It's like, probably not. You just change the mode. So case in point is if I were in here and I pressed 4, I would see this, which is the wireframe of the models that I have in here. 5 is the flat shaded, and 7 is lit. 6 is textured, 7 is lit. And what that basically means is that now anytime I rotate, you can see the lighting changing. So I am saving this, I'm recording this so I can post this up along with other videos so you guys can walk through it. So don't stress. So what I'm going to do is, let's say if I rendered this out, which I just did, I just want to, I'm going to record these settings, and then you guys can look at it. I'll just go to the renderer here, Viewport 2.0, click on the little box, and just turn on a couple of things to make it look pretty. Ambient occlusion, and anti-aliasing, which cleans the edges. That's all. And that looks pretty cool, just right there. So right now, just getting your object in there, and I created a directional light, create light, directional light, scaled it up, rotated it because the arrows are pointing in the direction the light is shining. And next time we'll go over like the materials and stuff of tweaking it out and getting it. But for right now, this is really all you need to do. And it doesn't mean that you may not have to tweak it out or that you're not going to tweak it. It just means like I want you to just jump in and start getting used to like doing some stuff inside of Maya. Because then I could do stuff, you know, like animating our little friend. Questions? And a cold silence fills the room. Yeah, that too. Oh, to save the file, so that you don't have to do this all over again, I'm just going to go File, Save Scene, and I want to point to the Scenes folder, if it doesn't take me into it, of my project, and that's where you save all the Maya files, is in the Scenes folder of your project. So, if it's not, and you have to redo it, that's okay. Yeah, after, like, when you get back or whatever, you just move it to there, but you want to save it to the Scenes folder. And I will call this one Thai Logo 1. Just save that. So that now when I want to come back and work on it, I'll just open that one up. But that goes into your Scenes folder of your project. Also make sure to save your Illustrator file. You can even put that in the project folder as well if you like this, to make sure everything is in the same, all the things are in the same place. And when you go to copy it onto your jump drive or your USB drive, you just go to Documents, Maya, Projects, and then you grab that whole folder and then copy it and paste it or drag it into your USB drive. And that's if you're backing it up onto there. But we want this whole folder that has all the stuff. And look, in the Scenes folder, there's my little Maya file right there. Let me do... So you guys good? Questions? So if we're going to do a render, we're going to turn this in. I'm in my Hypershade render view. This is my render window. And I'm going to choose Hardware 2.0. This is telling me what resolution. So I can even go and change that to a higher resolution if I want. By clicking on this thing called the render settings. It looks like a director's clipboard with a little gear on the bottom right corner. And then I could tell it under Common what resolution. So if I did like HD 540, I could do HD 720 or whatever and close that. So when I click this little director's clip, it does a render. And now all I'd have to do is go File right here, not up here, but in the render, Save Image. I want Color Managed, and I want to choose a JPEG. And then I will just say, oh, Shark Logo 1. And then I could save that image, and that's what I would upload, is that image on the VoiceThread. So you're rendering out, it's the same thing that when you're watching a movie like the Avengers or something, they render images out. It's just that this is just for one frame. And it's much more simplified, right? So I render one image out that I can turn in. Later on, we're going to render out multiple frames and make a movie from it. Yes, because when we do, like for the movie, the animation, see, you'll like this, it's a flip book. You render out what's called an image sequence. And each one of those is like the page of a flip book animation. And the difference is that once I get it, I don't have to draw every page. I just set a key. So the way that basically works is that later on I would say, oh, this is just to give you an idea. I want to animate this. Well, I move it over here, and then I set a key. And then later on I say, oh, by here, let's say within 24 frames, I want it over here, and I set a key. So when I hit play, watch this. And then I could even do it that, oh, like, let me just set an extra key, and then right here, we'll just give it just a little bit of, it went so fast it overshot. So now I could hit play. Whoosh. So, unlike a flip book where I have to draw or like a hand-drawn animation, I have to do every single frame, I tell Maya keyframes. It's S, but don't worry about it yet. Just because I don't want you to I'm setting keys all over and I don't know it. So, but you just press S and say at this moment in time, you're here. And then I go to another moment in time, move it to where I want it, and I set a key and I say, okay, at this moment in time, you're here. And then when I hit play, it's like, that's how you get that cool, like, oh, whoosh. And then I can even turn on things like motion blur and stuff like that. See? So now when I actually go in, this ought to be interesting. Let's just see. We rewind and we hit play. And then I get that, see? So it's not as bad, it's literally just certain elements. We get it looking the way we want, and then we can kind of play with it. And that's why it's like, once you have it in there, it might be me changing how this guy is, but just getting it like that, and then just dropping it in, whoosh, And I can even have the camera rotating around it, or spotlights going like the, 21st century thing. But this is how I would actually render it out. Once again, you go, after you render it, which is this guy, go File, Save Image, make sure it's a JPEG, and then I go in and basically type in the name of the image, and also make sure Color Manage Image, just turn that instead of RAW, and then you'd save it. And then that's going to be your image that you turn in. And you could turn in a few versions, like different angles and stuff. Yep. And then we'll worry about starting to get into how do we actually animate this and do stuff. The animation isn't going to be that hard depending on what you're doing. If it's just flipping it or coming in like that, it's pretty easy. You saw I did that like 1, 2, 3, boom. You know. Yep, I'm recording them right now. And then I will post it up and send you guys the link. But I'm just going to post it up to our yeah. And then you guys will actually see that, and then it'll work out. I'll email it to you. But otherwise, where I'm going to post it is the same one where all the video tutorials are. So you'll be able to actually see that. I'll call it like in class, like, you know, rendering the logo out. No worries. That's why I'm recording it, and then you'll have that down, and then you can walk through it. So don't worry about this part yet. I just wanted to show you that it's not that bad. But just look at how to bring that stuff in, and then you're good. Cool? It's all brand new. I know that. Don't worry about it.